baby trees.
Bonsai. Bonsai.
Bonsai. Bonsai.
Close enough.
The Black Pondo Podcast.
Bonsai. 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 Bonsai.
Bonsai.
Yeah.
The Black Pondo Podcast.
So what got you into bonsai?
I think the medium short version of this story is some combination of just being fascinated with succulent terrariums at first. I was just decorating the home and I just thought it was super cool composing these succulent terrariums, right? Combination of different plants, colors, textures. At some point I just kept looking for cooler and cooler things you could put in pots. Like what's the most exotic cactus or succulent I can find? Like where can I buy these rare things? Like how do they look like? And then at the same time, I had a coworker then who had dabbled in bonsai and was kind of, he had done a bunch himself, and he was like, well, you know what else you can put in a pot? You know what else you can do with bonsai? And I'm looking up these pictures of these crazy junipers with like tons of deadwood. He's like, there's a technique for that if you want to create that, or there's this and that. So he kind of really piqued my interest. And then I think this all culminated in a visit to Groveway Nursery in Hayward, probably somewhere in 2017. That was Johnny Uchida's nursery, right? And I bought I was like, I'm going to take a look, maybe there's something I could take home or not. And I ended up buying a juniper. And then Howard, who was helping out that day, working there, ended up, chatting me up for probably like a good 30 to 60 minutes, I was just asking him like, so what do I do after this? When I prune it, like, do I need to put it in a different pot? Like, how does this work? And then he just like dropped a lot of knowledge on me. Right. And I think after that conversation, getting that tree, it became very obvious to me that this is a pretty deep hobby of a lot of knowledge and a lot of technique. And that just sent me down the rabbit hole.
Oh, awesome. Well, hey, Sam, I have been super impressed with the work that I've seen posted, and I feel like your knowledge of bonsai and bonsai technique was really fast-tracked, and you just do really good work. Like I'm blown away by the things that I see on your Instagram and the quality of the work that I see you put out. So just want to give you massive props there. Your seem to have learned very quickly and a lot faster pace than I have. That's for sure.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate the compliment. And I had good teachers, and I guess I very quickly invested in learning it we're getting the right instruction, or getting like intensive instruction. I think that was something I probably did different from a lot of people.
Where's your instruction come from?
The short history of my instruction. Let's see. When I started getting into it, my first local resource was Jonas in Bonsai Tonight. And so he was over in Alameda. I quickly got involved, took his like workshops, or like kind of his kind of open work days, right? Where you work in his trees. I didn't have a lot of trees, and there were a few where I brought the one or two trees I had. After that, I wanted to learn even more. And there's like a limit to how much you can learn from those kind of vocational workshops, right? And so I looked into kind of intensive studies, and the person I went to is Michael Hagedorn for his seasonals. I took 3 of those. So those sort of 3-day workshops where, you go out to Portland and you're working on trees for 3 days in a row. And then after that, the opportunity opened up for me in about 2019. I kind of 3 months of kind of leave of absence from work. I wanted to take a little bit of a break and do something interesting. And I got a chance to intern at Bonsai Mirai with Ryan Neal. And so I lived on site for 3 months, mainly working on bonsai stuff, but also various kind of garden tasks. I was the garden intern then. And that was in 2019. And I would say that was my most significant period of being instructed. So I'd definitely say Ryan is my like number one teacher, but there were other people before that that set me up. And then along the way to this internship too, I was watching a lot of videos on Ryan's platform, Mirai Live, which was very, very educational. And I still watch it these days to kind of brush up on knowledge or kind of fill in some gaps in my knowledge on species I'm not so familiar with. So that's the short story.
For sure. Well, man, you sure stumbled across three incredible instructors and teachers in Jonas, Michael, and Ryan. I don't think you could get much better than that. So that's fantastic that you've had those opportunities. And 3 months staying with Ryan Neal, I think, would be an incredible opportunity. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was amazing. I still don't believe like how randomly I kind of chanced upon the opportunity. Okay, well, it wasn't entirely random. I definitely had a desire to spend a few months of my time to get off work doing bonsai because I really wanted to learn it. I remember I'd read Michael Hagedorn's book, the about his apprenticeship. One of the fellow club members in the Bonsai Society of San Francisco, he handed it to me. He's like, "Oh, I think you love this. Like, check it out. Fun little read." And I was definitely charmed by this idea of like kind of intense study of craft, right? Just like kind of dedicating yourself for a period of time, just learning hands-on mastery or progression in craft. And so I was already looking for something like that, but I had never met Ryan. I was not a student at the garden. I just happened, and I could never really line up a visit because Mirai had like official visiting hours, and that never lined up with the end of the seasonal workshops that I was doing at Michael Hagedorn's. And then this one time I was visiting Randy Knight after the seasonal just to check out what he has. And by the way, Randy's a super nice guy. If you guys haven't visited Randy Knight, he's like one of the nicest guys in bonsai. Like and most people don't expect that, because he has such a name and a reputation for being this like legendary collector, right? But he's a very approachable guy, very cool, very quirky. Anyways, I think I met him. I was, he's telling me all about his collection and collecting and stuff like that. And he's like, "You've seen Ryan's place, right? You've definitely been, right?" And I'm like, "No, I've always wanted to, could never line it up." And he's like, "Dude, I'll just call him. Like just like I'll just call him. Don't worry about it." And he's like, "Oh, he's there.
Yeah.
Just go up. It's like 10 minutes from here. Just drive up." And I told him you were coming, and so that was the first time I met Ryan. First time I showed up at Mirai, and then got into a conversation. Ryan was really nice too, and I guess that went well. And he was open to me potentially coming into intern. I mean, a few numerous follow-up conversations happened after that, but it just happened that the door just opened, and I'm very grateful that it did.
Fabulous. And would you elaborate a little bit more about your time at Ryan's during those 3 months? What did that look like?
Let's see. What did that look like? So I think the deal was, I was an intern, so not an apprentice, because that's a very kind of specific thing they do in Japan. It's like many years and stuff. So I don't think anyone of us wanted to call this arrangement that, but I was, he gave me a accommodation on site. I guess I could choose my hours. I basically was, Monday to Friday, like most of the work day, as much as you want. I work on stuff, and I guess I was mainly working on bonsai and helping out with garden stuff. So I guess in exchange for my labor, I got kind of accommodation and I guess instruction and the opportunity to work on all the stuff. So that was pretty much it. For the most part, I was working on trees, wiring, pruning trees. This was from July to October. I think we had discussed, well, I'd said I really wanted to learn how to style and wire trees, like how to make trees. And I was most interested in junipers. That was what I brought up. And he said, well, the best time to kind of come by then would be late summer, early fall. So this ended up being a July to October thing. I was mostly doing that. And then whenever there's stuff that, needed doing in the garden, I was there lending a hand as well. So various things like, I remember helping to pour concrete this one time. I'd never done it before. I think none of us had. But for one of the installations in the garden, there's just a bunch of us. It was kind of like kind of starting to rain, and we're we're all just like figuring out how to set this concrete, and we're holding up this installation of one of those structures that Ryan had built for his Portland Japanese garden installation. And so various fun but tiring kind of bits of manual labor did some of that too. So
Sure.
that was basically my time there.
Gotcha. Did you get that experience in with junipers? I would imagine. Did you put a lot of wire on junipers?
Yeah, I would say count how many trees I wired when I was there. Obviously, I was much slower when I was kind of at that stage of my bonsai journey. But I would say I mostly wired junipers, and I got basically to touch almost all the native species, and I think one or two like kind of exotic species, right? Like Chinese junipers of different sorts. Also a bunch of other native species too, like redwood, ponderosa pine. So I had it was a really good spread of like different varieties of trees. I think maybe one of the best parts about interning in his garden was that, Ryan has one of the most extensive collections of kind of US native trees, right? So to be able to touch those trees, a variety of them, and a bunch of them in kind of different stages of development, that was really educational. Also, when I was there, I mean, typically what Ryan had me do, these were like, second to, fourth wirings of the tree, right? So the tree, these weren't completely raw. Ryan would bring the tree in, or I would bring the tree in maybe, and then he would set the structural wire in it, right? And then he would typically set an example pad, an example branch, usually the defining branch. And it'd be like, well, here's how it's set up. Here's the example pad. Wire out the whole tree and make everything else kind of like this pad.
Nice.
That was the majority of what I was set up with on that during that 3 months. In subsequent visits, I've gotten a lot more autonomy to kind of do the whole tree from scratch. But that was a good way to start me off for sure.
Oh, that seems like a great way to learn. That's fantastic. And are you still studying with Ryan, or what's your bonsai education look like these days? And I know you're doing a lot of client work and kind of have a semi-pro thing going on, but are you still studying with Ryan?
In the years after after that internship, I've tried to go back to help, once or twice a year where I could, so where there's availability. Just want to, since I was kind of ramped up on kind of some of Ryan's techniques and how he liked to work his trees, right? So I finally became useful, and so I got to go back a bunch of times, for maybe like a week, 1 to 2 weeks, and I'll just be there, like working on trees. And a lot of people do this with the professionals they've learned from or work with, right? So I did that a bunch of times. And then I think things got really busy at Ryan. It was harder to find time that like kind of lined up with Ryan's schedule and my schedule. So I haven't been to Ryan like maybe over 2 years now. I mean, I've kind of visited, but not worked on anything. And this coming year, though, the Ryan's starting a new program for advanced students. Calls it the Master Studio. So I'm going in April for one of those. So that should be fun. But it's been a while.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so that's it's been a while since I've gone to get formal instruction from Ryan, which kind of ties it kind of brings me to like you brought up the client work I take on. So these days I take on some client work. I work in my own trees, and people pay me to work on their trees as well, and I also help out a bit at the garden at Lake Merritt with some of their older trees. And a lot of this, I mean, I do this on the side, and it's not my main source of income. But one way I thought about it was that, if I want to get better, I want to keep getting better, I need more and more reps, and I need like exposure to more material outside of my own collection, right? In the first few years after my internship, I spent, I wanted to keep getting better. And so I spent some time acquiring material where I could do all the first stylings and kind of take the risk on that, someone with a valuable collection, would reasonably not want to allow me to take the risk on, right? Like I never did a first raw styling at Mirai because, why would you trust me to do that? A guy 3 years into bonsai, right? So I had to do that all on my own material. So spent a bunch of time doing that. And at some point, I can only house that much material in my home in San Francisco. So taking on client work kind of allowed me to work on even more things. And so that's been quite productive, albeit a lot of work.
Yeah, for sure.
It is tricky having a full-time job and kind of doing some wire for hire, but I think so far it's been well worth it.
Nice. Very cool. Are you open to accepting client work right now? Is that something you're not looking for?
I think my bonsai skills have improved where I need, and there's still a lot of room for improvement. Somewhere else I really need to improve on is gauging my capacity and how much I can take on. There have definitely been seasons, and this is one of those busy seasons where I'm like, yes, people are like, oh, wire this tree for me. Actually, these 2 more. Yes. And then I have this like queue lined up in my place, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like this tree is like, this is definitely like a 6 to 8 hour tree. And then there's and that time doesn't just kind of, you can't create that time out of nowhere. It's going to come out of your weekday nights or you sacrifice your weekends. And so that was a very long way of saying kind of yes, but it depends on what's in the queue and like how it fits in with my goals. So selectively, yes.
Got it. Makes sense. Awesome. If anyone is interested, we should have started with this in the beginning, but what's your Instagram account, or what's the best ways to get a hold of you, Sam, or follow you?
Oh, right now I just have my whole portfolio, whatever, up on Instagram. That's Sam Tan Bonsai, SAM TAN Bonsai, BONSAI. You can look up that account on Instagram. You can message me. That's the best way of contact me right now. I should probably start a website at some point, so I can just have an email. But yeah, right now that's the best way.
Sweet. So what is it about natives? Why are you so into natives? And this is a funny topic because I feel like it's kind of split in the U.S. bonsai community. It seems like half the people are really gung-ho about U.S. natives, and then other people are not, and they say, oh, it's just like a political boundary kind of thing. And there's all these other Asian species that they've used for so long. Where do you kind of lean and orient when it comes to that argument? And well, I guess I just answered that, or I know where you lean. But what's your thought on natives, and why are you so interested in natives?
Yeah, you spoiled it. I'm pretty into natives, and and all these like little bios people ask me to send them for like club demonstrations and stuff. Like, I do explicitly say that I do really enjoy working with natives. Why? I guess there are a few reasons. I think fundamentally, what drew me, like one of the things I find attractive of the art form that is bonsai. I mean, it's kind of Japanese, but it's a lot about kind of context and place, right? Like if you just think about all the various aspects of display and all the kind of the intentionality that is put into setting a scene, right? Setting a season, a place, and so on. And I just feel like your geographic proximity to the native range of a particular tree, right, is interesting. It's contextually interesting. And obviously, I don't live in the Sierras or in the Rockies, or actually like close to this many like all these species I like to work with, right? But definitely moving to California after college and kind of discovering the wonders of California and discovering the wonders of like these crazy trees in the mountains and crazy trees on the coast. In fact, Monterey cypress was probably one of the first trees I was kind of obsessed about before even bonsai, right? It's just they're so obviously interesting, and like unlike anything I've ever seen anywhere else. The way that like being able to express some of that awe and kind of my relationship with these trees that I've discovered here in the art form of bonsai is something I just find attractive, interesting. So that's like kind of the artistic or kind of philosophical part of it. I think something else. There are a few other reasons. In terms of working with natives too, I'm typically thinking of working with collected trees, right? Yamadori. And I like working with Yamadori, and then being in the US, the only collected trees you're going to get are native collected trees, right? Because you can't really easily import them because of import restrictions and so on. And so, I think it's more that I really like working on and making collected trees, right? And that just becomes natives, mainly because I think it's just kind of the process of making a bonsai out of a collected trees. It's kind of different than like growing like a field grown tree or even growing a tree from scratch, right? I like the creative constraint of like a found object, right? It has these things you like about it, but there are a whole bunch of things you don't like about it. There are a whole bunch of trade-offs and technical things you might have to do to find the best solution there. And that whole process I find extremely challenging and interesting. And I only really get that with collected trees, right? I don't think I could. People have asked me before why I don't spend time growing, and I just don't think I could be as creative as nature. I could make myself do the weird things to these collected trees that nature does. Like if I were to grow them myself, right? I would never do it, and I'll end up making these kind of very predictable trees because, like, I don't think I'm the most creative guy when it comes to like making something from scratch, right? So the little nudge I get from nature when I work with a collected piece of material is also kind of an interesting kind of creative constraint.
Yeah.
And that,
I feel like Mother Nature is truly the best bonsai artist, and the best carver of deadwood, the best anything when it comes to bonsai. It's all Mother Nature is the best. We are ultimately just emulating Mother Nature and trying to replicate to the best of our ability, and it never turns out quite as good. Some people get really close, but I feel like Mother Nature just crushes all of us and is way better than we could ever expect. So I get that there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think so. And again, nothing against the kind of the process of growing a tree, right, and making kind of classical idealized trees, but I just enjoy the process and the creative challenges that come with collected material quite a bit more. And this probably has to do with me having learned from Ryan, right? And like I probably, a bunch of that kind of liking that kind of probably rubbed off of me, having worked on so many of those trees. Something else I like is like the challenge of learning how to refine these trees. It's exciting. I feel like where the scene is now, the community is now, I think there's a lot more knowledge and experimentation, or the results of experimentation on refining or building native species, right? Knowledge and kind of results the community didn't have probably a decade ago or more, right? And so I find it exciting to kind of be part of a movement of people who are trying to learn how to get the best out of these species, right? And you have to imagine this happened at some point in Japan too.
For sure.
All the Japanese, the established species for bonsai in Japan, like, had to be because they were working with what they had, right? That all those are their native species, and earlier generations of bonsai people there probably spent a whole bunch of time figuring out which were the best and most interesting species, cultivars, what techniques, and so on. And so it's like being on the frontier of figuring out new techniques for new species is like just exciting,
Nice.
So I'm still very kind of fascinated by that, and like I'm experimenting with different approaches, different techniques, and like seeing what I can achieve. Whether some of my theories or kind of approaches are gonna kind of work out is fascinating to me. That being said, there's something attractive about working with a very predictable species that does exactly what you want, like a Japanese black pine. Like, you decandle it, like you read the signs, you do it at the right time, like it's going to respond exactly how you want. And there is something very attractive about that because you can kind of develop predictable results in a good amount of time. Natives are very frustrating sometimes when they don't behave the way you think they are going to because of a whole variety of reasons. But I like the challenge.
Yeah.
And I was going to say the one more thing I really like. The one more thing I want to talk about here is that also enjoy keeping a lot of my native trees on their native foliage, particularly junipers. I think people are mostly like talking about grafting junipers. I can't grow most of the native pines in San Francisco, unfortunately, so I don't have that much to say about pines. Like if I ever wanted to own a ponderosa pine, I'll probably have to graft it with black pine, but I haven't kind of gone out of my way to do that yet. But with native junipers, again, like there's one, the challenge of finding the foliage. It's definitely harder. There is a reason why the various kinds of Chinese juniper are so popular in bonsai. They kind of bonsai themselves. They build woody tissue like pretty early and they get dense pretty fast. But again, just like the challenge and also the kind of the context, right? The place that comes from saying this is a Sierra juniper, like collected from this part of the Sierras that has this kind of like subspecies of foliage. It smells a certain way, it looks a certain way, and it's kind of different from the next Sierra juniper, which is different from the Rocky Mountain juniper, and it's different from the other Rocky Mountain juniper over there, which is from another subspecies. I like that. It's just a fascinating story and kind of a interesting challenge. So that's my long take on this.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. Yeah. The juniper grafting is an interesting one. I kind of have started to graft more and more of my junipers. However, I still want to keep a couple native if they have good foliage quality. But I look at a number of factors, like size of tree, how is the native foliage quality, does it have pollen sacs, things like that. And then I try and like rate the quality of the native foliage. And if it's, above a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10, then I'm more likely to keep it. If it's below, then I'm like, maybe I should graft it. But I do enjoy the native foliage, and I totally get what you're saying about that. And I like definitely like keeping some of my native. So
Wait, you brought up pollen sacs. What's that? What does that predict in your experience?
Oh, just so certain trees, they'll have pollen sacs. I'm not sure if it's a male female thing or what the deal is exactly, but it's like these yellow little flower looking things
Sure.
on some of the foliage, and they just don't look quite right to me. They don't look all that pretty or attractive, in my opinion. So
Got it.
I'm not sure if I'm using the correct terminology. Let's see.
No, I think it is pollen. You're talking about junipers, the yellow sacs. I think that's I think that's for male trees produce those pollen sacs. Yeah.
Yes. So whatever they are, not a huge fan of them, and it's hard because it seems, from my experience, not every juniper will have them every year. So like I'll collect a Sierra and it will be fine for like 3 years, and then on the 4th year it just grows all these pollen sacs. And they're not the most the ugliest thing in the world, but they're not the most attractive thing in the world either. So if I do see those, typically it's a negative, and it will, to me, it lowers the mark on the sliding scale of quality. So I usually graft anything that has pollen sacs. That's just my personal thing. Yeah.
I've never heard someone not liking the appearance of the pollen sacs. Not saying they're super attractive or anything. That's the first time I've heard that. But one thing I have heard, at least for California junipers, I've heard that female trees tend to have tighter foliage, and so you're not liking the pollen. The appearance of pollen sacs might have a correlation. If that's true, and female foliage is indeed tighter, and I guess you tell the female trees from those that those that produce berries. You would think then that like the pollen, ones with pollen probably have coarser foliage, which could be another reason why you don't like them.
For sure, totally, yep.
And actually, also graft. I haven't grafted much at all, but I have to then imagine that the grafting stock never has pollen cones on it. Like typically does not produce pollen.
You mean like if you graft Itoagawa or Kishu on it, does the scion or approach graft have...
I guess the seed, the whips that people propagate, those have to be the female or like the non-pollen producing like plants, right? Or I actually haven't seen. I don't think I've seen Itoigawa or Kishu produce pollen, and I kind of want to know maybe because we've selectively propagated the ones that don't produce them, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think I've seen it either. I know some. I've seen like Kishu get berries before, but I think that's a different thing.
Oh.
I should know this. Do all junipers get berries, or do just some? Is it that just a male or a female thing? These are
Yeah, my simple.
questions I don't know.
I've always assumed that it's just female, but I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong. I wouldn't be surprised if like the trees are a bit flexible in that. We'll check these facts after the podcast. This is
Totally
interesting. But you're right. I've never seen like grafted trees produce pollen. Maybe just berries, and even then, like I don't even see it that often.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely removed berries off of a Kishu, grafted Kishu before. So I know that berries are a thing. But yeah. And then what do you think about grafting native junipers onto native junipers? Do you like that idea? I've never seen it done, but I've heard it talked about before.
I have also heard it talked about, and I have been asked about this before because I have one of these Rocky Mountain junipers in my backyard that has a particularly good foliage. It's very tight. It's very turgid. Stands up on its own. You've probably seen that tree at Peters. I was boarding there. This like really long, like cascading tree. That thing's rocky. It's very green. It's very tight. Downside is that the wood is very brittle, and I've heard this is one of the kind of subspecies of Rockies that like Ryan has seen a bunch of. It's a kind of like, oh, you got good foliage, but it's a bit more fragile, a bit more brittle. Yeah, people have asked me like maybe you should propagate this and then graft it on Rockies, and then you still have Rocky, but like the good Rocky. And
Yeah.
I tempted. I thought about it, but I don't know. I think the moment you're changing the foliage, like for me, like you lose that story of like this is the tree found as is, like growing the way it was, like where it was grown, right? And so I don't find that appealing. If I was going to graft, then maybe I would just graft like the best possible foliage ever, right? Like maybe I'll just graft the Itogawa that has the tightness, but also like all the other better things, right? That you get with Itogawa. So I haven't found that attractive yet. I have also gone suggestions, for one or two of my trees where like if I wanted to compact the tree, I could graft the tree on itself. The Sierra Juniper I put in the Pacific Bonsai Expo, the most recent one, has kind of an awkward low branch that like where a line could maybe be corrected if I put a scion in there, a scion graft. I've thought about it, but like maybe that's the most attractive option to me. But even then, I don't love it because like I don't love the idea of grafting to change the structure of the tree. And I know this is like common practice and it's done in Japan, it's done here, but like I'm sure there are ways you can do it really well and like we totally disguise the graft, right? But if you have a primary branch that has pretty established structure going up, and then you graft in the kind of you graft in a certain spot just to continue the line downwards, say, like I think it's going to take quite a while for that union to naturalize, right? And I'm not quite sure in the long term if it will fully disappear, and this particular tree I'm talking about is like kind of like a long, like elegant tree where you see a lot of the line, right? So I don't know if that's going to work out very well if you can, like, the graft union is going to be visible in the design of the tree for a long time. So yeah, I don't know. I'm this is me maybe coming up with reasons not to graft because I'm lazy. This could be it, but I'm hesitant. How about you? Have you grafted natives on natives?
No, I have not. And part of that, so I would be into that. Like if I could find the 10 out of 10 Sierra Juniper, I would be interested in grafting that onto some of the Sierra trunks that I have collected, possibly. Like I still really like Itoagawa and Kishu as options. And then also the other one I've been grafting is Fudo. At least that's like the common name.
Okay,
and it's like a bluer. It's a bluer. It looks like Kishu, but it's bluer. But anyways, I'd totally be down if I could find a really good quality Sierra juniper. I would be down to graft it. One thing that I have found is that it's incredibly hard to get Sierra junipers to root from cutting.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, I don't know. And then I'm not sure if scion grafting would work, but it seems like so far I've taken a bunch of Sierra juniper cuttings because I was like, I just want to see if they'll take. And it was very challenging. I know Eric told me he had some challenges taking Sierra cuttings as well. So I'm not sure if how you would go about that. I'm sure there's a way. I'm not very skilled when it comes to propagation. So, I just can take a million Kishu cuttings though, and Sierra is more challenging. I've heard Rocky Mountain's also hard to take from cutting, but I'm not 100% sure.
I imagine the way you would do it, if it was hard to propagate from cutting. I'm not an expert either, but you could probably just air layer, right? A bunch of stuff. I imagine that would be probably a bit easier.
Well, so I know that California juniper air layers well. I don't think that Sierra air layers all that well. But
Okay.
I'm not sure. I haven't done a bunch. I've definitely seen California air layered before successfully. I have not seen a Sierra air layered successfully, and I'm not sure about Rocky Mountain. So,
If I were to try it, I would probably find. I mean, obviously, we're talking about young, smaller whips, right? Not the whole trunk, not the trunk of an old tree, but like part of a branch. And I'd probably try to air layer where there's like foliage underneath the air, below the air layer as well, right? I think that would probably increase chance of success. Because
for sure.
But yeah, I haven't actually tried.
Yeah,
that's good. Maybe I'll try it out next time when I prune that particular tree. Because more than one person has asked me about the foliage in that tree, so maybe I'll make a killing off a bunch of cuttings.
Very nice. Yeah, I would love if you air layer it. That Rocky Mountain juniper, I'd love to see the results of that. That'd be fantastic. Also saw an interesting thing that Bjorn posted the other day. He was saying that rooting hormone can help increase your chances of a scion graft, which I had never heard before, and I thought that was just kind of a cool point there. So it makes sense to me because essentially rooting hormone just helps increase callus tissue, and essentially with a scion graft, you're trying to get that callus tissue to form very quickly and bond to the native stock. So I thought that was kind of cool. Haven't experimented with that. I think I will in the future, though.
Oh, interesting. I haven't either, and I wonder too. Maybe next time I'll think about it when I graph. I guess my one concern about getting overly aggressive, like encouraging more callus tissues, that you might like maybe push like the graph out of alignment, right? 'Cause I know you want to get the cambiums to kind of line up, and so you would think that maybe the plant being grafted can produce callus a lot more kind of vigorously than the scion, right? And how does that like affect the position of the alignment of the cambial layers? That would be my concern. But yeah. Also Sierra, there's one year I experimented with when I was kind of doing some sharp live vein work, right, and reducing the live vein. I applied one of these cut pastes with that has a more rooting growth hormone or whatever in there, right? On the margin, the new margin I created, thinking would help it callus over faster, and you get a more attractive roll. Dude, Sierras are super, super vigorous. Like they are, they put on tissue so fast. The veins get so fat, and I totally regret the decision because that entire kind of margin, like callus in kind of a grotesque way. It's just too much. Too much callus. So I don't think Sierras need a lot of help with callus. Like they're going to do it themselves. So
totally. I
anyone's
even
considering
wonder,
this, don't do it. It's like a bad idea. You might even close any kind of gaps that you created in doing live vein work if you encourage too much callusing, because those things are crazy.
Yes. I even wonder if you scion graft Sierra and you use rooting hormone, would it just make like a grotesque bump of vascular tissue because it's just going too crazy, going too hard in the paint, forming that callus? Like maybe that's why we don't use rooting hormone for scion grafting. I think it's done in the nursery industry to some degree. I'm not sure exactly, but that's where like the studies were done that Bjorn posted.
Interesting. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the tip.
Yeah. Cool, man. What are your, do you have some favorite species for, or native species for bonsai? Like what would you say maybe your top 3 are?
Huh. It's a good question. I work with a lot of cypresses. I work with a lot of pygmy cypresses and once in a while Monterey cypresses. If in terms of like the story, like the romance of like my connection with the tree, like I like cypresses the most because I live in San Francisco and the Monterey cypress is the iconic tree of like kind of San Francisco Bay Area NorCal, right? But I don't there's very few, you can't really collect Monterey cypresses. There aren't many examples of kind of old collected or grown Monterey cypresses, so that's hard to access. So I usually work with pygmy cypresses, which are kind of like a cousin, similar, or maybe even the same species grown in like a kind of collected from a different environment, right? But those, while interesting, the ones collected by Bob Shimon or kind of anyone I've seen collect them, but kind of they're all kind of long, elegant trees, right? Like, I guess what I'm saying is that with the material I have access to, there is kind of limited variety of form, and so while I love them, I wish I could work with more different kinds of pygmy cypress. I want thick, chunky ones and big, long, whimsical ones, but they're always just long and just different kinds of lines that you get to work with. So I like pygmy cypresses, but actually my where my heart really is when it comes to like working on trees, I love junipers. I still love junipers. So I don't have as many junipers proportionate to my love for working on junipers. Among the native junipers, I probably like Sierra juniper the best. One, it's kind of closer to where I live, right? There's like I actually see them in the wild, and these things bonsai themselves, they're giant natural bonsai. Also, with the really coarse growth habit, like when you work them, when you style them, it's you can actually get a finished appearance much earlier because of how the foliage is coarse. It fills a lot of space and it kind of stands up on its own, actually quite a bit. And so it's kind of very satisfying if your technique is good, right? And you're able to kind of spread that coarse foliage in the right way to form pads and fill spaces. You can actually see results pretty quickly, which I like. And obviously they have like a really attractive kind of bluish foliage, most of them, and also the live vein when you sand it, sands the very even red color. So it's a very like loud and bold tree. When you see it's like blue and then like deep red and like it's so vigorous and like it's coarse. So I like Sierra juniper the most. I think a close second would be Rocky Mountain juniper, which is kind of opposite, super fine foliage, typically pretty brittle wood, the best dead wood in the business, right? Like they have such fine tissue, right? And so like the striations in the deadwood are always like super interesting. Tons of variety of forms. You have fat, chunky ones. You have long ones, and the foliage, while typically challenging to handle, I guess it really rewards you if you're detail oriented and you have the technique to present that foliage well. Like it's really technically demanding to fully detail wire Rocky Mountain juniper. And I guess maybe I'm a masochist, but like I enjoy that challenge and I enjoy reaping the rewards of that effort.
Awesome. Well, I'm right there with you with Sierra juniper. I think that's my favorite. Although for me, I think it's just I'm biased. I've just been around it, and I love spending time up in the Sierra. That's like my spot up there. I haven't spent a whole lot of time in the Rocky Mountains, so maybe it's just a bias or whatever. But I Sierra is my number one. So we're samesies
And
there.
you've collected a lot of these trees, right? So
Yeah.
you've farmed the table, or, mounted the table.
Yes, farm to table for sure. Yep.
Something that I've always found interesting about Sierras. Maybe I want to ask you this, since you collect them and you've probably seen a lot more examples of raw material in the mountains. I find that the deadwood, typically in the samples you get for the collected specimens you get for bonsai, the deadwood seems to be younger, and the deadwood seems to then, say, compared to Rocky Mountain juniper, even California juniper, and the deadwood seems to have a very different character to it. Like a lot of the age in the deadwood seems to present itself in like the kind of like checkered pattern, right? Versus kind of the fine parallel lines you see on like California Rocky Mountain juniper deadwood. That's one. And you also get like the live vein deadwood margins are also a lot, like quite a bit different. Like with the Rockies, especially, you get very HD boundaries, right? Like very parallel lines. Whereas with the Sierras and the Westerns, the live vein can kind of smudge over the deadwood. Like it recedes in a really weird way, right? Smudging is like the best way I can describe it. It's like it's not a clean line. It's like a wavy kind of line, and sometimes it moves in ways you don't expect. And so that's something that's weird about Sierra junipers that I kind of like. It's kind of charming, I guess, but I do wonder if there are specimens with that same kind of HD deadwood, high def like deadwood that you see on Rocky Mountain junipers. Have you seen that? Is that your experience at all with kind of Sierra specimens?
I've definitely seen the smudging effect that you're talking about. And then I'm not sure, like, I would love to see some examples of what you mean when you're talking about like the HD Rocky Mountain juniper deadwood. I mean, I definitely see a lot of interesting texture with Sierra juniper, and I think that's like a very desirable characteristic. I also think with our native junipers, there's certain characteristics. Say, for example, like I call one spike gin, and it's just kind of like this Ebo gin type feature where it's like these spikes. And I think that it was formed because there was there was a whirl where essentially a bunch of different branches grew out of one small location, and then those all died off. So it's a bunch of little gins all very close together. I call it spike gin. I do think that as time goes on within American bonsai, we're going to identify those unique features of the specific types of junipers. And I think that we should name them just to make it easier for quick reference and to have better and more in-depth discussions about these things. I'm not saying we should use spike gin. I don't think that's the best name, but just I like the idea of naming certain types of gin that we see. I've heard some other people say like, oh, there's like scale gin here. And I agree with that. I think we should like have some kind of universal naming convention. I think that would just be cool. So I don't know if I answered your question there, but
no, it makes sense. And I realize now that calling the deadwood HD it's not very descriptive. I guess what I don't see on Sierra junipers is kind of like really like fine live veins like wrapping around deadwood in kind of this really intricate way that you might see of some other species, or like you look at the old collected junipers in Japan, right? Like you'd see like a primary branch of like a barber pole pole live vein around deadwood. You don't really see that in Sierras, and I think because the Sierra live vein is kind of fat. It's like it's thick, it's plump, right? And you never get those proportions in Sierras, and I think that's just what they are. They're a coarse, vigorous species.
Yes, 100%. I completely agree with you there, and also just finding really good twist and curve in Sierra is more challenging. At least it seems to me, compared with Rocky Mountain junipers. It's definitely out there. Like I've definitely seen some Sierras that have some really awesome dead live interaction, really cool twists, curves, spirals. I have a couple of them that have some of that going on, but it's less common, it seems, at least to me, compared with the Rocky Mountain junipers. And I'm not sure what's going on, if that's all genetic or it's more environmental factors. Don't know there exactly.
Well, you have some very impressive Sierra junipers. I'm pretty jealous. I can't wait to see
thanks,
some
man.
of these projects of yours. Show us some time because you have some crazy junipers.
Appreciate it. Hey, I am in love with your pygmy cypress forest. It's kind of like on a slant on the stone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you posted an update on it recently, and I just wanted to say, like, that tree is quite stunning and very beautiful, and so great work on that. I was curious, what kind of stone is that on?
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. That is on a piece of lace rock that I got from a stone yard in Portland, actually. When I was on my internship, I kind of gone with Ryan. He was shopping to the stone yard. Is it called rock yard? Rock yard, stone yard? And he was shopping for stones, and I just picked this up on the side. I thought it was an interesting piece of stone. That composition very much inspired by Ryan's pygmy cypress composition, which is much bigger, pointing the other way, but like much bigger and impossible to lift as one person. And I came back from the internship thinking, I want to make basically this composition, but like in a size that I can kind of carry. What I ended up making, I can barely carry, but I can carry it. It's still kind of big.
Nice.
It took a lot of engineering. I think one day I'll post pictures of the whole process. But Eric Schrader from San Francisco, he helped me a lot. I wanted to stand the lace rock up at an angle to create the impression of a cliff. And so what we ended up doing after some brainstorming is kind of drill 2 holes underneath, on one end of the lace rock, and basically epoxy in a bunch of bent rebar, 2 bent pieces of rebar into those holes. And so we created a kickstand for this to stand this thing up at a diagonal angle. And then I cast an epoxy base around the kickstand so I could more easily plant it in a pot. And so that whole thing was kind of set up. That lace rock was lying down on its side when I got it. And then I put 4 trees on it. And this was when I was less experienced. So there were, I think over time, like 2 trees didn't quite make it. And then I had to replace the trees. Awful, by the way, like having to tear apart your composition and like patch trees in. But there's actually 4 pygmy cypresses on there, and one of them is a dual trunk. So I have 5 trunks, 4 trees and 5 trunks. So that dual trunk is really, really awesome because there's less root ball you have to deal with. And there's a whole bunch of like scaffolding on the back I have to build out so that, one of the trees in the back wouldn't be just floating, and like it's hard to attach a tree on the side of a rock that small. And so, yeah, a lot went into that. The care and the watering is pretty intense, but it's finally kind of maturing. All the trees on that composition too are planted on that rock straight out of the collection containers. So I know a lot of people say you got to be really careful with pygmy cypresses. They don't like big repots. You can definitely do it, but you need to put you need to be very careful of the roots, and you also need to do whatever you need to do to stabilize the tree in its position. I think where I experienced failure before is I was tying the tree against the rock just by its roots, but because of how slanted that rock is and how little soil I had to leave on the tree, right, to get the aesthetic I wanted, like I needed external supports to prop the trunk at that angle to give the roots time to grow into that position, right? And so in the latest picture, you probably saw some scaffolding, like pinching this one tree into position. Like that was the most tricky part of the rock, to mount a tree. And I took no chances with this tree because if it died, I would have been so sad because I don't want to replace another tree on that composition again. It's just a lot of work.
For sure. Well, hey, you crushed it. It is just so awe-inspiring. I love that composition, and the vertical nature of the stone, the angle that you chose really upped the level of quality with that composition. So fantastic job there. Do you use the sphagnum instead of muck, like I believe Ryan does?
Yeah. I use Ryan's technique of doing the sphagnum and
The
akadama
Bo
weave.
Peeps. Uh huh.
Yeah, it's very labor intensive, especially when you're dealing with like almost vertical composition, right? To get
Yeah.
the weave, the sphagnum in there and have it stay. But it's totally worked. It's totally worked. It's totally worked. It takes a whole bunch of time. I tried Michael Hagedorn's and the first iteration of that planting. I tried that kind of muck mix where he uses cornstarch, sphagnum, and akadama dust. It didn't work quite as well for me as I was hoping it would, and also, and I probably didn't mix the right ratios, or I probably wasn't using it exactly right. But over time too, like I found that I've heard this about muck. You have to replace the muck at some point anyway because it kind of ends up caking up, getting really hydrophobic. And so on like later iterations, when I planted the other trees on it, I used pure sphagnum, and with akadama kind of pushed into it. Took like 3 times the amount of work,
Longer.
but
Yeah.
the trees definitely recovered faster, and it sets over time.
Very nice. Very nice. Love it. I guess kind of changing gears here. You have some furniture in your house, or at least one piece of furniture made by Austin Heitzman.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. It's a bench that sits in the corner, kind of a oddly shaped corner, and I decided to get Austin to make me a bench so I could fully utilize that kind of angle in that corner instead of wasting this corner. I think I told you about it because I think it came from like the lumber came from a similar tree that the stand that your redwood at the recent expo was sitting on, like it was kind of a similar piece of lumber. So like I recognized some of the grain and the
Yeah.
purplish color on the stand there. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the same one. And Austin had told me, I think before, when he was showing me samples for the slab, he's like, oh, here's another work in progress stand that like is kind of from the same tree. And I remember thinking that stand was pretty awesome. So it was cool to see in
Oh,
person.
cool. Yeah, I just am such a big fan of Austin's work. His stuff is so incredible, and in general, I really seem to like walnut a lot, which is, I believe, what your furniture is made out of, and my stand. It's walnut, right?
It is walnut. Yeah,
Nice.
walnuts pretty awesome.
Yeah.
You and I are not the only two people who love walnut. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Beautiful stuff.
beloved species.
Did you see Austin getting some sizable manzanita recently?
Oh, I saw that. Yeah. I saw. He posted on Instagram, and like I think Eric had some property that had manzanita that needed to be cleared. That's
Yeah.
exciting. I haven't seen big pieces of like manzanita anything.
Yes. No, me neither. That's one species that I love just in general. I put it in my bonsai garden just as landscape plantings, but I absolutely love manzanita. I wish I could grow them for bonsai, but I think furniture would be absolutely incredible. And I don't know anybody else that is using manzanita lumber, which it's just awesome that he was able to get that. But I'm really excited to see that, as I love the color of the wood, and the grain of the wood looks really cool. I don't know if you've. It's just going to be interesting to see manzanita, bonsai stands, I think.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, it's very red. It's not my kind of my favorite color of wood, but it's definitely a fascinating species. I guess we'll have to wait like how long does it take to dry? Like like years
Yeah,
before that lumber can be worked on, like 1 to 3 years, something like that.
going to
But
be a
yeah,
minute for
yeah,
sure. You ever
fascinating.
try manzanita as bonsai?
No, I actually haven't. I don't collect, and so like if the opportunity presented itself and someone had a manzanita, I would try it, but I haven't. I have heard they are difficult to bonsai. They don't respond well to bonsai, like transplanting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I haven't had the best luck with them. And the way that I experimented with them was to grow them from cutting, which is actually very easy to take from cutting. But I tried a bunch of different varieties, tried a bunch of different soil mixes. I experimented with like Kanuma, pure pumice, Akadama pumice lava, and for whatever reason, they grow like weeds for like 5 years, and then they just slowly kind of start going downhill after a certain point in time. And I have no idea what it is exactly, but I would get like maybe 5 to 7 years out of a manzanita. I thought everything was going good, and then they just kind of slowly start going downhill. And I don't know what I'm doing wrong, if it's a nutritional thing. One kind of hypothesis I had was maybe there's some type of mycelium or mycorrhizal relationship that we're missing in our soil, and that's what we could be missing. Like, I have no idea what it is, but a species that I really love, they have incredible bark, that red, beautiful bark, and beautiful little flowers. And then I think it'd be a fantastic species for bonsai. It's just haven't had success.
Bummer. Yeah, you're not the first person to kind of tell me about like wanting manzanita and that being difficult. I'm curious too. I just haven't tried.
Yeah.
But it would be a good species. Very kind of iconic coastal. Are they a tree or a shrub? Do you know?
I think they can be both, and it depends on the variety. Like, there are true tree varieties of manzanita. There's some that are this thick around, and then there's some that are more like groundscape. There's a ton of different varieties of manzanita out there. But yeah, bushes and trees. So yeah, just depends on the variety, I think.
I'm gonna have to keep an eye out because living in San Francisco, there aren't that many. The native species I can work with are limited, because we don't get enough cold, and so
For sure.
Have my eye out for new coastal species.
Tell me about I saw on your Instagram story the other day you went to Bob Shimon's place with Addison, I think.
Oh yeah. I try to go every year to see what he has and pick up some new trees. Yeah, what can I tell you about the visit?
Well, I've never been to his place, and I was curious, like, does he have many redwoods these days, and what is his place like, and whatever else you want to tell me about it.
Bob lives, somewhere close to Mendocino. His business is Mendocino Coast Bonsai. For those of you listening, never met him before, he's usually at the big shows in California, right? He'll have a huge stand. He'll have a lot of pots from Sarah Rayner and Vicky Chamberlain, and he's the guy for pygmy cypress and redwood. Yeah, I've been going up yearly for a few years now, and I've actually a whole bunch of trees I put on my Instagram. Actually, his trees that I've helped him kind of restyle over the past year or so. So I think this time when I went up, I was dropping off a bunch of trees and actually picking up a tree that have been sitting there for a bit. He has a lot of trees on his property. I think Bob's like 80, so I have no idea how he keeps up with like the hundreds of trees on his property. It's pretty impressive. Mostly redwood, pygmy cypress, some short pine, and smattering of like kind of other varieties, mostly outdoors. He has like 2 small greenhouses. When I first went to this place, this might have been 2017 or 18. He had a lot more kind of like redwood stumps, like burls, like that people build into kind of more abstract bonsai, right? And then back then I was like, hey, do you have any like upright redwoods, like straight trunks to, build into like formal uprights? He's like, nah, not so many right now. And then over the years, I've noticed he now has like a steady supply of upright redwoods. I think, it's probably responding to, changes in the market. More people are interested in that style for redwood now. But still, so like, he still has like these stumpy burls, but I want to say more uprights now than those burls. So pretty interesting. Definitely worth a visit. I am really trying to acquire more good redwoods and cypresses where possible because they're 2 species I have no problems with at all. And I can develop them very quickly. They behave very predictably in my environment. It's like home turf, right? They grow in San Francisco. So yeah, I try when I can to kind of get good specimens. And,
awesome. You got a pretty big one from him, right? You brought something home?
It's pretty big. It's planted in one of those 27-gallon storage containers, those green made ones. So it's pretty
Yeah.
big. I remember telling Bob when I saw the tree, like, I'm not sure I actually like this tree, but I've never seen a collected redwood like it, and it's like really chunky and really massive. It's like a 3 trunk kind of clump, I guess. It has kind of the same fused root mass, and the main trunk is like just extremely, extremely fat. It's like grotesque. And so I think it'll make a really cool and kind of one of a kind redwood. Again,
Yeah.
I'm not like actually drawn to it, but I'm like, this tree is unique and powerful and unlike anything I've ever seen. So I should probably make it a bonsai.
Oh, I think it's going to be badass. That's exciting.
Yeah, you
And
should come see it sometime.
I would love to. You were telling me that you had some ideas, or you were kind of just daydreaming, maybe on the ride home. Can you fill me in about that at all?
Oh, well, actually, when I messaged you about that, it's more for ideas for our conversation today.
Oh, got
For the
it.
podcast. So it wasn't specifically kind of for that tree.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
I think I know what I want to do with that tree. It's just going to take some time.
Cool. It was cool, Sam. So when you were when you did the reconstruction on your home in your bonsai garden, you had all your trees at Peter's house. And so I go up to Peter T's house on the regular, and I got to check out all your trees. So I'm like, I know your trees pretty well. I really like the redwood forest or clump that you have. I think that is one of my other favorite trees of yours. So I think my favorite three that I remember are your pygmy cypress forest on the stone, your redwood clump, and then I really like your Rocky Mountain juniper and the Tom Benda. I think that's a
oh,
really killer one as well.
oh, thank you. Yeah, that tree has been experiencing health issues for a while. I feel like 2025 is going to be the turning point. I'm finally going to repot it, take out more of the native soil. Been experimenting with some of the Blue Eden products, fertilizer. I'm hoping this is the turning point because that's a really good juniper, and I've been jonesing to work it, but I just haven't been able to work it because it's been showing weakness. So definitely my favorite tree. Yeah, thanks. I also really like that clump redwood. I was just thinking about like what pot to put it in. It might be time for a repot. That one's a little interesting a design because it's like a clump. I guess they all have the same base, right? The base kind of elevated off the soil surface a bit, so it's like a bunch of trees growing out of this base. But right now it's like looking more symmetrical than I want it to be, and it has a bit of, what do you call those, like candle holders? I forget the name. The name's escaping me, but it has this kind of like flare in the sides where some of the trunks are coming out the side, and making the base look a bit weak, because of the width of the canopy, and that plus the kind of the symmetry that I have right now in the design. I'm trying to find a solution to solve those problems to make the tree a bit more interesting, but it definitely has a ton of potential. I also got that tree from Bob, so
Nice.
definitely a good find, that one.
Yeah. Bob is a legend in the bonsai community, I feel like, around here. He is responsible for so much and has provided so many quality redwoods to the community and done so much teaching. I just have a ton of respect for him. And he was my first podcast guest, actually, back in the day, and even my first bonsai teacher, technically, although it was just like I did a GSBF convention workshop with him. That was my first experience with a bonsai teacher. So a lot of respect for
Wow,
Bob. Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for him too, and I mean, he's still doing it. And it's crazy, like at that age, like just the work to kind of drive over from Mendocino to wherever it is in California the shows are at, and like packing the van and still going out collecting and stuff. I'm impressed. Every time I complain about doing anything in my backyard, I think of people like Bob, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just lazy. I need to get off my ass and like go do it.
For sure, for sure. Awesome. Well, would you tell me a little bit about your bonsai garden? Like, would you maybe describe it for those who haven't seen it? If
Yeah, let's see. Well, you haven't. Well, you've seen pictures. I guess you haven't been here in person. Shoot, what's the how do I describe it? It's about 1,500 square foot, kind of deep but narrow but deep backyard. Very kind of San Francisco layout. Let's see. It's, yeah, 1,500 square feet. I have about between like about 40 trees in there. Let's see, how else can I describe it? When I was thinking about the aesthetic, I wanted something that fit the contemporary style of the house. So a little background here: I was renovating my house. House has been like 48, very good but original condition, and I wanted to update it. And along with that, I wanted to tear out the backyard as well, and just kind of make the whole setup look nicer, and also be kind of better for my bonsai practice. Just quality of life improvements, like having double like French doors all the way from the garage to the backyard, so I can cart trees in. Huge improvement. So my house itself is like pretty clean and contemporary, and with some hints of like modernism in there. And I kind of wanted to carry that aesthetic to the backyard. You had mentioned that we like walnut. I like walnut, and a lot of my kind of interiors have a whole bunch of walnut furniture, walnut veneer cabinetry in the kitchen, and kind of dark wood. Is the warm tones of like dark wood are kind of my thing, and so that's something I want to do in the backyard as well. And I also have a lot of kind of black powder coated metal indoors, or just like brushed metal, black metal. And so I wanted to have those accents in the backyard as well. So clean lines, dark wood, use of metal, mostly black. And so my backyard has like kind of those colors in it, which I guess is like, not that common in like bonsai gardens. I guess what I definitely didn't want to do is like just build a Japanese garden, because I mean, other than bonsai, I don't know anything about Japanese gardening. I admire Japanese gardens a lot when I visit Japan, but I don't want to try to build a Japanese garden here that's never going to be as good as a real Japanese garden, because I don't have knowledge. I don't know the people. I don't have a close relationship with someone who does, and it's just not authentic to where I am and who I am, right? So that wasn't the route I want. Yeah, that wasn't the route I wanted to go down. Yeah. Oh, and the person who helped me do the design, Ryan Kaufman, I met him on my internship at Mirai. He was working there part-time then, or was it full-time then? He was doing a mix of bonsai stuff and landscape stuff. And after that, he started his own small landscape design business. And so I had him come down and kind of do the design for me, which my contractor then executed. So that was great, because he was someone who had a good sense of aesthetics, new landscape design, but also understood the needs of a bonsai person. And so I really wanted to hire someone like him, so I don't have to explain kind of the basic logistical requirements of bonsai. Like, what is a monkey pole? Like I don't know if I would have to explain this to other people. And so it worked out really well. My architect had a bunch of photographs taken of the whole house, including the backyard. I can't share them yet, but at some point, probably put them out there. People, if people want to visit, contact me on Instagram. I was happy to show people around, including yourself included, by the way.
Thank you so much, man. I'd really like to. Definitely would. What type of benches and monkey poles do you have, or can you talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, for the monkey poles, I kind of contemplated a few different options for a while. I ended up doing metal posts, and then actually metal posts and kind of metal platforms, but with a wood topping on the metal platforms. I guess so. There are two parts to this. One, I learned from my time at Mirai that setting wood in the ground is something that will fail in the medium term, just because of that kind of that connection point to the ground, right? It's just going to rot out at some point. I didn't really want to have to deal with that, so I wanted some kind of metal, something with more longevity. Originally, I wanted black metal, and then just like the local fabricator is kind of expensive. The powder coat is going to be expensive, and so I went for the next best thing, which is just like ungalvanized steel and just letting it rust to get that kind of organic rusted look. So these are 4x4 square steel tubes, and then I borrowed this idea from Andrew Robson, where I then had a metal platform welded to a smaller metal tube, right? So that this platform could sleeve into the 4x4. I think Andrew might have used like a smaller square tube to sleeve into the larger square tube. For me, I did a smaller circular tube so that my platforms can actually rotate. I thought it was a cool idea. Honestly, I don't ever rotate them. I would just turn the whole tree around. So I'm not really sure how useful that was. Maybe I would just have gone, in hindsight, I would have just have gone for the smaller square tube. But and then I had my friend Jay McDonald help me build some wood platforms that are attached to the metal platform. One, for aesthetics, I like the look of tree on wood, and two, I just didn't want the tree sitting on metal like on hot days. I figured that metal is going to heat up, and I was kind of concerned about the effect that was going to have on the trees. So those are the monkey poles. For the benches,
why not rotate them why not rotate the top as opposed? So do you rotate the tree? Just the tree?
okay, so I'm still figuring out garden logistics here because I've only lived in this house at this point like half a year. Well, when it comes time to rotate the trees, I don't want to just like turn the tree around and have the back of the tree facing me in the kind of the display area of the garden. That kind of defeats the purpose of having that display area. So what I actually do is I take I move those trees to the bench area, and then I choose a new tree that needs to be rotated, and I put it on the platform. So I wouldn't really just like in place just turn the tree. So that rotational capacity is useful when I just want to like, I don't know, occasionally like water a different part of the tree that's hard to access and so on, right? But yeah, I never really rotate the tree in place because
okay,
it would just look
makes
bad.
sense. Yeah. I rotate my trees, and it's my least favorite thing that I do. Like every week, I turn them around. But I like your idea way better. So what I should do is just switch them over to the opposite side of the garden, and then the front would be the new back, and the back would be the new front. I think that works better. But like, I hate rotating my trees around because then I look at the back and I'm sad until I get to turn them back. So
every week is really impressive. I try it like once a month, and I keep like increasing the interval. And right now, aspirationally, I'm trying to do it once every 3 months. But we'll see. But moving trees around, I picked that up from Ryan at Mirai. I guess he was always very concerned about where the trees sit in relation to other trees. Like the whole garden was kind of always meant to be a bit of a display area, right? So just being very thoughtful about the presentation of the trees in relation to each other, and not trying to make the horticulture line up with the aesthetics of the garden always meant more work, because once you move one tree, then there's like a cascading effect on a whole bunch of other trees you have to move around to make all of this work. So
for sure,
just 2 days ago, I did a full rotation of my garden, and I had to stand there for a bit, some of the trees off the pole, and just like think of like what tree to put where. So that this all makes sense aesthetically.
Makes sense.
The bonsai life.
Bonsai life for sure. Awesome, man. Well, hey, I've really enjoyed this, and it's been awesome to chat with you tonight. I guess maybe just kind of like to close out, is there any other topics that you were interested in hitting on? Or one question that I always like to ask is just like, is there anything that you have been daydreaming about? I'm always trying to just unlock the daydreaming thoughts that are potentially in bonsai folks heads, because I usually find those things interesting, and I like to nerd out and geek out about them. So I don't know if there is anything, but
I do have one more topic that lines up with something I daydream about.
okay.
I guess something I didn't get to talk about that I was thinking of talking about was just like design thinking in bonsai, and how that's something I've found very has kept me into it as I've gotten better at bonsai and more experienced. Like I more and more I'm getting more, spending more time thinking about design of my trees and kind of aesthetics and how to make my trees kind of look interesting or look the way it kind of convey the intention that I have for them. We don't have to get like deep into that right now, but I do think that's something that rubbed off, that kind of Ryan rubbed off on me, and has gotten kept me interested in the hobby, more and more, as I've kind of grown in experience. And I'm often thinking about other interesting ways to kind of design my trees, but also to do display. I haven't had a lot of chance to do display. In fact, the first PBE, Pacific Bonsai Expo, 2 years ago, was the first time I had to kind of display trees in kind of a very serious setting. And so that really got me thinking about what I want to convey and how and so on. And so I've been thinking about maybe opportunities to, collaborate with other artists, to do like interesting containers, for example, or interesting art to be displayed with bonsai. Tons of people have thought about this and experimented a lot with this, but I like really am into the idea of like bonsai display and the composition and kind of setting place and showing place, showing season, showing some kind of deeper meaning. I just haven't gotten many opportunities and time to go deep into putting together a really cool composition, right? And I've also been kind of unwilling to just buy a whole bunch of like the classical display elements just because those are like what you display with bonsai. Like I find those like traditional scrolls beautiful. I'm just like not that into that art on its own, and just to buy a whole collection of them just to display bonsai in this standard format, like doesn't feel authentic to me. And so I run into art that I enjoy quite often. I mean, I've been trying to decorate my home and get wall art and stuff like that. And like when I go to these galleries, I run into artists who produce work that's interesting and that might kind of work well at bonsai. And I do dream of maybe collaborating with certain artists where to put together something interesting that again is authentic to me and like kind of authentic to the time and place I live in. And so I'm like very interested in that, but I haven't had the time to really invest really heavily in that yet. Same for containers. Like I love Japanese bonsai containers, traditional containers, but I'm always wondering what other more interesting creative things I can put my trees in that are still high quality and thoughtfully crafted and have meaning or interesting shape and design. And so like I've been thinking of working with people who do different kinds of metal fabrication or metal art or glass or all these other kinds of materials, right? Where you can kind of just be more creative and freeform. So things I'm dreaming about, if any of your listeners are artists of those sorts or are interested in collaborating, very much kind of happy to chat, but always thinking about more interesting ways to kind of give context to these trees.
That's fantastic and very fun to think about. One thing I think about kind of on that same vein is I think it'd be really cool if we could, say, display a Sierra Juniper with a painting that was relative to our the Sierra native environment. So maybe rather than Mount Fuji, which doesn't make sense, we have
Right.
like a iconic image within Yosemite, like El Cap or something like that. I don't know exactly, but either you could do a scroll or a painting, but something minimalistic where it didn't overshadow the tree. I think some things like that could be really fun and exciting. And I like thinking about display as well.
Yeah, and I do wish there were more opportunities to display. One thing I kind of like slightly regret with my home renovation is that I didn't set aside a space for indoor display. I guess I wasn't ready to commit to that yet, right? And I wasn't going to build same way I wasn't going to build a Japanese garden. I wasn't going to build a traditional tokonoma. That made no sense in the kind of the architecture of my house. It's a very specific feature, from a very specific culture. But I think if I had my own display space, I would have my own little playground to experiment with some of these ideas. And then, if I have to buy these items to do display, at least I'm enjoying it myself. It just seems like a real pain to buy, like kind of really not inexpensive kind of crafted items, only to show it once a year at some once every 2 years at some national show, and then you pack it away, right?
For sure.
And so maybe at some point I'll do a mini like follow-up renovation or something just to add a display area, right? And then that's going to give me a lot more motivation to pursue these ideas.
Love it. Yeah, you should. It's never too late. And I would like to do something like that as well. Although, yeah, it's just these costs start adding up very quickly. And so the trying to do it can get very challenging from a financial perspective. So,
for sure. Yeah. And I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Well, pipe dreams. I hope we both able to achieve some of this. We should talk before the next big show next time. Would be fun to brainstorm kind of different ideas for kind of interesting, kind of tasteful display that is
absolutely
contemporary and contextualized.
Yeah, I love it, man. That sounds great. Cool. Well, hey, Sam, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it, man. And I've been super impressed with all the work you've been doing. You seem very talented and skilled in bonsai, and I can't believe how quickly you have become so good. So great work, man, and really appreciate your time here tonight. Yeah, thanks for everything, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the kind words, appreciate your time, and yeah, thanks for inviting me. It was great chatting.
Most definitely. Take care, man. Talk to you later.
Man, see you around soon. Bye.